Our world is changing rapidly. It's a call to joint efforts and forge new paths. Global Gateway is here to create new opportunities across our planet, connecting countries, regions, and most importantly, people. By building quality infrastructure and by building partnerships, this is Europe's offer to the world. Global Gateway is mobilizing up to €300 billion for projects, fighting climate change and enhancing energy security, boosting competitiveness and digitalization, expanding access to education and promoting research, strengthening health systems, and securing supply chains. Together, we have already developed hundreds of projects across the globe, and local communities are the first ones to reap the benefits. With partner countries across Africa, we're powering local economies by developing clean, affordable energy sources through green hydrogen and new solar and hydropower plants. In Latin America and the Caribbean, we're making health systems more resilient by developing medicines and manufacturing vaccines in the region. Meanwhile, we're building sustainable transport corridors to connect communities and markets across Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and the Pacific. Global Gateway is connecting the world through smart and sustainable investments. Investments that respect people and the environment, that promotes the values and goals that we share. Let's join forces for a better future for all. We are partners in change.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think we are ready to kickstart this, the closing ceremony of the Global Gateway Forum. I said yesterday that this was a coming together of friends and partners from around the world, and I hope the last 2 days have delivered on that promise. A warm welcome to those of you following online. We hope you are also enjoying the discussions and the conversations around the Global Gateway Forum. I'm Jennifer Baker, an EU policy presenter and reporter based here in Brussels, and I'm your MC for this session. I should remind you as well that there is interpretation available. Pick up the headphones and receivers that you find on your chairs. The key themes that we have discussed over the recent days have been green energy, education and research, raw materials and transport, health and digital infrastructure. And these deliver a cross-section of what is going on with the Global Gateway in practice for improving lives. We know that they will help us deliver on that motto, stronger together through sustainable investment. There are 90 flagship programs, we heard all about that yesterday, aimed at bringing together to leverage mutual support for a better future for everyone globally. And I hope, to borrow a phrase from yesterday, that you had many robust and fruitful discussions. But it is now my great pleasure to turn over the floor for the opening remarks and to set the scene for us to Josep Borrell, the High Representative and Vice President of the European Commission. Sir, thank you.
Dear friends, we say in Brussels, tout protocole observé. Thank you very much for coming to our first Global Gateway Forum. When we discuss about geopolitics of Global Gateway at the Foreign Affairs Council in November, 1 year ago, last year, I pointed out that 2023 was going to be the credibility test in which we need better to over-deliver instead of over-promising. Promise less and deliver more. And that's what we have tried to do. And today we are in a very tense geopolitical context. And especially for that, because we live in troubled times, the Global Gateway has become a central part of our strategy to reach out to the so-called Global South. We are not only in a battle of narratives, we are in a battle of offers. Not only the nice story, but the best actions. A battle of offers. And with our Global Gateway, we want to support the economic and social development of our partners by helping them to build better connectivity infrastructure, accelerate their green and digital transition, and enhance their intangible infrastructure, which is done by health and education of their people. Healthy and educated people is the better infrastructure of any society. We want to be green, we want to be digital, but we want to also have cohesion societies. Don't forget, that is the final purpose: healthy, educated, and prosperous citizens. And we are trying to do our contribution to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. That's what we are doing to help produce vaccines in Africa as a crucial part of the Global Gateway endeavor, for instance. The green and digital transitions can only succeed if they are just. If they are not just, they will not happen. They will only happen if they benefit everyone, everywhere, and in particular, the poorest and the weakest. Otherwise, the societies will reject the needed transformation and the world will be in greater trouble. Our global gateway should contribute to our economic security strategy. Also, we need more security. And for that, we have to de-risk our economy by diversification of our supply chains. We want to make the European Union supply chains less vulnerable. We learned from the pandemic, and we have learned from the war in Ukraine. We need to improve our access to resources, from energy to critical raw materials, breaking the old-style extractivism that today is being rejected, rightly so, around the world, and joining our partners in adding value, not just taking minerals or food or wood from the land, add value where the resources are, in order to create jobs locally, not only by exporting raw materials, but exporting value added. And I think that we are trying to achieve these ambitious goals with partners on all continents, from Central Asia to Africa, from North and Southeast Asia, from Latin America and the Caribbean. But Global Gateway must also be a tool to deepen our cooperation with other regional organizations. The European Union is an important regional organization, but it's not the only one in the world. We have the African Union, we have CELAC, we have ASEAN, and the Gulf Cooperation Council. All these regional organizations are new poles in this new multipolar world that has to be both multipolar and multilateral. Otherwise, the world will become a more dangerous place. This forum has allowed us to discuss the progress that we had done on implementing the 90 flagship project that was identified last March. And another 100 projects. Let's be concrete. 90 projects until March, 100 more will be endorsed at the next Gateway Board later this year. And the important question today, my dear friends, is what is the real impact of these projects? We know them, we name them. We know which is the political will behind them, but which is the real impact of these projects? And this will be explained by my colleague, Commissioner Jutta Urpilainen, that will offer a summary of what has been discussed at the different parallel sessions, and then we will go into the guest speakers debate. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, dear Pepe, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends. After 2 days of the Global Gateway Forum, one thing is crystal clear. Global Gateway is delivering. we brought together over 90 high-level government representatives, as well as financial institutions and many businesses and civil society representatives. We debated global infrastructure investments needs, discussed strategic investment opportunities, and sealed new deals worth billions of euros. I think the figure is over 3 billion euros, which we have signed yesterday and today. I think it's worth of applause, please. Our 6 thematic panel discussions formed the real DNA of the Global Gateway: partnerships for transformative change. So, dear friends, on the green transition, we have to increase green energy investments in emerging and developing economies and countries by reducing real and perceived risks. On education, Pepe was talking about that. We acknowledge education and research underpin the green and digital twin transition. We recognize the importance of teachers and signed the implementation of our 100 million euro teacher training initiative in sub-Saharan Africa. On critical raw materials, we need to invest in local value creation in partner countries. Our strategic partnerships on critical raw materials help our partners to move up in value chains. On transport, establishing and reinforcing strategic corridors to connect people and businesses in a sustainable way will be the backbone of the Global Gateway. On health, the private sector and collaboration with research institutions will reinforce scientific cooperation and increase global resilience. With EIB, we are investing an additional 500 million euro in strengthening national health systems. And finally, on digital, Global Gateway drives human-centric and secure digital infrastructure. Putting in place the right regulatory frameworks will avoid recreating inequalities and deepening the digital divide. So, dear friends, these were only few glimpses to the rich discussions we had yesterday and this morning. They were complemented by several new announcements and exciting projects which will live up to the aspirations of the Global Gateway strategy. I want to particularly pay attention to our heads of states of our member states from the European Union. This is real team effort. Global Gateway is based on the concept of Team Europe. So we are working together, the Commission, European institutions, financial institutions, as well as member states, in order to be able to deliver globally in our partner countries. So thank you very much from my side, and looking forward to continuing this excellent endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed, Commissioner, and indeed for all of the organisation that has gone into this event. I'm going to turn now to our guest speakers before we come to the heads of the European Union. So I'm delighted to welcome to the floor Azali Assoumani, President of Comoros and Chair of the African Union. Please, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Madame, de me donner la parole. Et remercier encore une fois le Premier ministre de la République de Belgique, aussi que Madame la Présidente de la Commission européenne, représentée ici. Et vous dire, chers collègues, chefs de gouvernement et d'État, Mesdames et Messieurs, en vos rangs et qualité, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Je tiens tout d'abord, au nom de ma délégation, et en mon nom propre, à exprimer nos chaleureux remerciements aux hautes autorités de ce beau pays pour leur accueil chaleureux et pour les délicates attentions dont nous faisons l'objet depuis notre arrivée ici, dans cette belle ville de Bruxelles. Je voudrais également, au terme de nos travaux, saluer la bonne organisation de cette rencontre, mais aussi féliciter toutes les délégations ici présentes pour le travail très important réalisé pendant ces 2 derniers jours de débat. Je remercie aussi les partenaires au développement de l'Afrique, en particulier l'Union européenne et Global Gateway, pour leur volonté renouvelée d'accompagner le continent africain dans son nouvel élan vers une croissance économique rapide, durable, harmonieuse, définie dans son agenda 2063. Le continent africain fait face à un défi majeur, à savoir la problématique du financement des infrastructures pour assurer son développement socio-économique. Ce déficit infrastructurel, comme vous pouvez l'imaginer, a un impact négatif sur nos économies, sachant qu'une infrastructure de mauvaise qualité réduit fortement le taux de croissance moyen par habitant dans nos pays. Et c'est ainsi que nous appelons nos partenaires à faciliter l'accessibilité financière afin que le continent africain puisse rattraper le retard pris en termes d'investissement dans les infrastructures. Il faut noter aussi que les coûts des services d'infrastructures en Afrique sont nettement supérieurs à ceux d'autres régions en développement, qu'il s'agisse de l'énergie, de l'eau, des transports, de la santé, l'éducation ou le numérique. Il faut reconnaître aussi que certains pays n'ont pas de cadre juridique, réglementaire et institutionnel incitatif pour favoriser la mise en place de partenariats publics-privés essentiels au développement d'infrastructures. Mesdames et messieurs, l'Afrique a beaucoup de défis à relever. Les infrastructures énergétiques sont essentielles au développement. Or, des centaines de millions d'Africains n'ont pas malheureusement accès à cette ressource essentielle. Pourtant, les potentialités existent. Que ce soit dans le domaine des énergies thermiques ou des énergies renouvelables telles que la géothermie, l'éolienne, le photovoltaïque ou l'hydraulique. S'agissant du numérique et plus particulièrement le haut débit, les télécommunications mobiles et l'Internet, une importante fracture numérique existe certes à l'échelle mondiale. Toutefois, rien qu'en Afrique, il est estimé que plus de la moitié de sa population n'a pas de connexion à Internet et seulement une infime partie de la population africaine est abonnée à des services de haut débit. Pour ceux qui disposent d'un accès Internet, non seulement les prix sont souvent très élevés, mais s'y ajoute aussi le fait que la bande passante est fortement limitée dans de nombreuses régions. Selon un rapport publié en février dernier par le cabinet de conseil McKinsey & Company, les opérateurs télécoms actifs en Afrique subsaharienne devraient investir 15 milliards de dollars dans le déploiement des réseaux de 5e génération d'ici 2025. Alors qu'à l'échelle mondiale, les investissements dans les technologies 5G pourraient dépasser les 600 milliards de dollars au cours des 3 prochaines années. Et concernant la santé et la diversification des chaînes de valeur et de production pour répondre aux besoins de santé publique en Afrique, est crucial pour le développement et la résilience du continent. Cela implique la création d'une infrastructure de soins de santé plus autonome, plus adaptable pour parvenir, entre autres, à une production pharmaceutique locale, à la promotion de la recherche et du développement dans le domaine des soins de santé, y compris les vaccins et la découverte des médicaments. Cela implique aussi la mise en place de partenariats avec les secteurs privés, des organisations internationales et d'instituts de recherche pour renforcer les capacités et l'expertise de nos pays à apporter l'innovation, y compris la télémédecine. Vous me permettez de saisir cette occasion pour, au nom de l'Afrique, adresser mes remerciements à l'Union africaine pour la signature qu'il y a eu tout à l'heure du paquet de santé par la Commission de l'Union européenne, le CDC Afrique, la BEI, d'un montant de 134 millions d'euros visant à soutenir les 6 pays africains dans le cadre de la production des médicaments et des vaccins, parce qu'en effet, le Covid nous a appris. Et des pays africains ont pris le risque de faire l'investissement dans le cadre des productions locales en Afrique. Et nous espérons que ça va s'étendre au-delà de 6 pays africains à d'autres pays, et surtout un pays qui s'appelle l'Union des Comores. Excellences, distingués invités, en Union des Comores, le gouvernement ne ménage aucun effort pour soutenir le développement socio-économique du pays. C'est dans ce sens que nous avons lancé un plan Comores émergent 2030 avec des projets phares et structurants visant à investir davantage dans le domaine des infrastructures et notamment dans les secteurs de l'énergie, de la santé, du numérique et des transports. Des avancées notables sont faites dans le cadre de ce PCE avec l'accès au 4,5G, la construction des parcs solaires sur l'ensemble du territoire et la finalisation prochaine de la construction d'un hôpital de référence qui s'appelle l'hôpital Marouf. Et par ailleurs, en tant que pays insulaire, nous souhaitons promouvoir la connexion maritime aérienne pour garantir une meilleure circulation des biens et des personnes, ce qui nécessite d'importants investissements nationaux et bilatéraux, multilatéraux. C'est ce souci de mobiliser les investissements privés que le gouvernement a mis en place avec des textes réglementaires, une structure dédiée au dialogue entre le secteur public et privé afin de créer un cadre de travail propice au développement basé sur des échanges réguliers et la confiance mutuelle. S'agissant du climat et compte tenu de la vulnérabilité du pays, très exposé aux effets du changement climatique, nous avons tenu en juin dernier à Moroni une réunion sur l'économie bleue pour sensibiliser l'opinion sur l'importance de ce secteur. Ainsi, nous sollicitons l'appui de la Commission de l'Union européenne et plus particulièrement celui de Global Gateway dans la mise en œuvre rapide et effective non seulement de ces PCE, mais aussi de la déclaration de Moroni pour une économie bleue au service du développement. Mesdames et Messieurs, les défis que l'Afrique doit relever au terme de financement d'infrastructures ne sont pas des moindres. Selon les nouvelles estimations de la Banque africaine de développement, 130 à 170 milliards de dollars par an seraient nécessaires au développement des infrastructures du continent, avec malheureusement un déficit de financement de l'ordre de 68 à 108 milliards de dollars. Ce forum arrive à point nommé, car il suscite l'espoir de voir le pays bénéficier du financement requis pour combler ce déficit. Je salue à cet égard l'apport constructif du programme Global Gateway au développement des infrastructures et plus que jamais, je me réjouis des actions communes que nous pouvons mener pour développer un écosystème qui soutienne la création en Afrique d'infrastructures plus résilientes, susceptibles de fournir des services de qualité à nos populations. Et pour conclure, j'ose espérer, mesdames et messieurs, que les débats que nous avons eus ces 2 derniers jours et les recommandations faites nous permettront d'attirer les investissements nécessaires dans le cadre d'un partenariat réel gagnant-gagnant pour plus de progrès en Afrique et dans le reste du monde. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Now, for our next speaker, we know India currently holds the chair for another month at least of the G20, and so we're delighted to welcome to the stage Damu Ravi, Secretary at the Ministry of External Affairs of India. Thank you very much.
Heads of government, heads of state, heads of the international organizations, diplomats, officials, ladies and gentlemen. It is for me a proud privilege to represent India in this August gathering. The Global Gateway Forum assumes greater significance in these times of global uncertainties. India shares the European Union's desire to enhance connectivity, which includes both physical and digital. There is expectation that this connectivity project will bring greater economic benefits to all in an equitable and balanced manner. Excellencies, India has successfully concluded the G20 summit last month. The global leaders actively participated and helped in bringing out an ambitious agenda which is captured in the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration. It truly reflects the spirit of the G20 theme, One Earth, One Family, and One Future. India strongly believes that the voice of the Global South should be heard loud and clear in the global discourse on development. As Africa is central to the Global South, in a historic initiative under India's presidency of G20, with the support of all member countries, African Union was rightly admitted as a permanent member of the G20. It is also essential to bring into the discourse of climate change the lifestyle for environment to comprehensively address the climate change challenges. Climate change has taken the center stage of the global agenda. The challenge for the Global South is how to achieve green transition without diluting the development imperatives. Such an approach requires the collective will of all countries that transition to green energy is smooth and not onerous. Excellencies, India has set up ambitious targets in green energy. With 500 gigawatts of renewable energies by 2030 and 20% of our fuel to be sourced from biofuels by 2030, India has demonstrated its determination to move forward on the green energy path. I wish to draw your attention to the launching of the Global Biofuel Alliance by Prime Minister Modi at the G20 summit in New Delhi. Further, India is actively pursuing green hydrogen and green ammonia initiatives. India would wish to assist countries of the Global South in their energy transition through enduring partnerships. Excellencies, the logic of sharing has profound influence on relations amongst nations. This is very much part of India's cultural ethos. In the last 2 decades, India has been involved in nearly 600 development-oriented projects in 78 countries in the world. And of this, more than 60% projects have been successfully completed. Under India's flagship program for capacity building, the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program, more than 500,000 experts have been trained in the Global South. Digital technologies are extensively used in remote areas in Africa and other regions to provide access to education and learning. Excellencies, India looks at South Asia as an organic whole, where countries, cultures, and people are intertwined. With the understanding, we are actively working towards enhancing connectivity through cross-border infrastructure projects in South Asia. India believes that the digital public infrastructure can bring transformative changes in the life of a common man. This is one of the major agenda items during India's G20. The low-cost digital solutions, in particular digital identity and fintech solutions that India successfully introduced, have vastly contributed to efficiency in governance, public service delivery, enhanced transparency, all of which are empowering the common man. India would be happy to introduce these low-cost solutions in the global south, customized to local requirements. Excellency, we need to have a multi-sectoral approach to development, keeping in mind the urgent need for realizing the SDGs, where significant ground still needs to be covered. It is about time that women are actively brought into the focus on development. India's G20 presidency rightly emphasized on the women-led development to bring lasting changes in our societies. Excellencies, as strategic partners, India and EU are working closely together under the India-EU Connectivity Partnership. Both India and the European Union could work together on infrastructure projects as well as capacity building in the global south. EU's expertise and technological advances, combined with India's experience and human resource capabilities, can create scalable and sustainable solutions. This brings into focus the importance of North-South paradigm in the development dimension. Friends, India congratulates the European Union for organizing this Global Gateway Forum. The President of the European Commission, Her Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, has shown extraordinary leadership and determination to move forward together. India is committed to this initiative under the India-EU Connectivity Partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such a positive message and a reminder of those SDGs. We turn now to our heads of the European Union. As most of you all know, there's a European summit happening in Brussels today, and such fortuitous planning means we've been able to cut the carbon emissions of those travelling today to Brussels. So I'd like to turn the floor over to Pedro Sanchez, President of the Government of Spain and currently holding the presidency of the European Union.
Bueno, alto representante, colegas del Consejo Europeo, jefes de Estado, de Gobierno, ministros, señoras, señores, gracias por esta invitación para participar en la clausura del Foro Global Gateway, un evento que durante 2 días ha servido de nuevo para poner de manifiesto la relevancia y también la profundidad de este instrumento, así como su impacto global en la promoción de inversiones estratégicas sostenibles desplegada por la Unión Europea en terceros países. Como bien ha señalado el alto representante Pepe Borrell, España ha estado implicada de forma muy activa en esta iniciativa desde sus inicios. Por eso quisiera comenzar reiterando el más firme apoyo de mi país a la misma en este momento en el que España preside el Consejo de la Unión Europea. Y desde esa posición, permítame compartir con ustedes unas muy breves reflexiones sobre el Global Gateway tras estos 2 días de trabajos. Todos creo que somos muy conscientes de la relevancia de la inversión que se pretende movilizar, nada más y nada menos que 300.000 millones de euros. Pero más allá de las cifras, me gustaría destacar algo fundamental, y es el salto cualitativo que esta oferta representa en la acción exterior de la Unión Europea. Porque lo que el Global Gateway aspira a trasladar son los valores europeos en un momento en el que estos son más necesarios que nunca. Y lo hace al menos en 3 aspectos que me gustaría compartir con todos ustedes. El primero, aquí se ha hecho referencia por parte del resto de intervinientes, alineándose decididamente con la Agenda 2030 de Naciones Unidas. También con el Acuerdo de París en la lucha y la adaptación al cambio climático para contribuir junto a nuestros socios al avance inaplazable del desarrollo sostenible. En segundo lugar, generando relaciones de verdadera asociación y de partnership, tanto con los países del llamado Sur Global como con los organismos regionales multilaterales. ¿Eso qué significa? Bueno, significa impulsar inversiones productivas frente a las meramente extractivas, con proyectos que reflejen las necesidades, las prioridades de nuestros socios, alentar la formación de asociaciones para el reforzamiento de cadenas de valor tanto en la Unión Europea como en los países en los que son objeto de estas inversiones. Y finalmente, creo que es muy importante decir que lo que hacemos es compartir esos valores democráticos, los estándares europeos en materia social, laboral, de género entre hombres y mujeres, de buena gobernanza, de transparencia, demostrando así un compromiso especial con nuestros socios y con su ciudadanía. Porque ahora más que nunca, queridos amigos y amigas, necesitamos democracias plenas, sociedades justas, igualitarias, economías sostenibles y, por cierto, un mundo en paz. Son sin duda objetivos muy ambiciosos los que nos hemos marcado y alcanzarlos con éxito requiere una gobernanza clara, transparente, inclusiva, que integre a todos los actores involucrados. Por eso creo que es muy importante la creación de este Business Advisory Forum, de la plataforma para la participación de la sociedad civil, como fórmulas que lo que hacen es garantizar que las voces del sector privado y también de la sociedad civil van a ser escuchadas y tenidas en cuenta. Y al mismo tiempo creo que resulta clave ejecutar nuestras acciones desde un enfoque, como ha dicho bien la comisaria, de Equipo Europa o de Team Europe, que permita maximizar la aportación tanto de las instituciones comunitarias como también de los Estados miembros de la manera más eficiente, coherente y cooperativa. Se trata, en definitiva, de una de las grandes iniciativas de la Unión Europea hacia el mundo, consciente de esa dimensión. En nuestro humilde papel como presidencia rotatoria del Consejo de la Unión Europea, España se está volcando en el desarrollo de la misma. Lo hemos demostrado además en la presentación de la Agenda de Inversiones Globales, de Global Gateway, Unión Europea, América Latina y el Caribe, en el marco de la tercera cumbre Unión Europea-CELAC celebrada el pasado mes de julio. Y en ese sentido quiero destacar la implicación del Gobierno español en la identificación de la lista de 130 proyectos estratégicos de inversión en América Latina y también en el Caribe presentados durante esa cumbre. Hablamos de un compromiso de movilización de inversión muy importante, estamos hablando de 45.000 millones de euros, de los cuales España contribuirá con 9.400 millones de euros. Y además de ello, otra de las prioridades de la presidencia española en el marco del Global Gateway es asegurar no solo un adecuado equilibrio geográfico entre países, sino también entre los distintos sectores de desarrollo. Porque junto al desafío de las transiciones ecológicas y digital, como aquí se ha dicho, nuestros socios se enfrentan igualmente al reto de un crecimiento y de una cohesión justa. Por eso trabajamos para que la cartera de inversiones de Global Gateway contemple actuaciones en sectores sociales como la educación, como ha dicho el alto representante, la formación, la salud, la protección social, que se sumen a las desempeñadas en materia de energía, clima, digitalización, transportes, conformando un gran, digamos, elenco de inversiones en favor de la transformación del progreso y del bienestar. Termino. Lo que quiero decir es que debemos ser muy conscientes de las altas expectativas que Global Gateway ha creado en muchísimos países aquí presentes y otros tantos, y asumirlas tenemos que hacerlo con orgullo y con un máximo grado de compromiso, como ha dicho el alto representante, consciente de que esta iniciativa está llamada a ser uno de los grandes sellos de identidad de la Unión Europea en su acción exterior. Por eso termino invitándoles a mantener el excelente trabajo que estamos realizando juntos, a redoblar los esfuerzos para asegurar el éxito de esta empresa común, a avanzar decididos por el camino que ya hemos abierto. En definitiva, sigamos impulsando, amigos y amigas, las transiciones verde, digital, social, con inversiones históricas, como lo que estamos aquí anunciando, y hagámoslo siempre de una manera justa, inclusiva, creando trabajos dignos, mejorando la calidad de vida de nuestras sociedades, tanto las europeas como las de nuestros socios globales. Nada más y muchas gracias.
Thank you very much indeed. And it is now my very great pleasure to welcome to the stage the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, Xavier Bettel.
Merci beaucoup. Chers amis, comme on jongle d'une langue à l'autre pour respecter aussi la francophonie, je m'adresserai à vous en français pour commencer. Alors tout d'abord, gateway veut dire en fait une passerelle. Une passerelle, c'est vouloir construire quelque chose entre l'un et l'autre. C'est un pont. C'est vouloir créer des liens. Je dois vous dire que je ne sais pas s'il y a eu des temps où c'était aussi urgent qu'actuellement de créer des passerelles entre les uns et les autres. Nous vivons une période, et moi-même je fais partie d'une génération, je n'ai pas connu la guerre sur mon propre territoire luxembourgeois. Mais je fais partie d'un pays qui a connu aussi une occupation, 2 occupations. Et aujourd'hui, quand on voit ce qui se passe sur notre territoire européen, entre l'Ukraine, ce qui se passe en Ukraine, l'agression russe, quand on voit ce qui se passe aujourd'hui à Gaza et Israël, quand on voit ce qu'il y a comme risque entre le Kosovo et la Serbie, et là je me concentre juste sur ce qui est le plus proche de moi, on n'a jamais eu autant besoin de passerelles, de liens les uns avec les autres, d'échanger. Et j'ai eu tout à l'heure aussi un échange avec ma collègue Première ministre du Bangladesh. où justement la conclusion c'était on a des cultures différentes, des origines différentes, des traditions différentes, mais la volonté d'apprendre l'un de l'autre, de travailler l'un avec l'autre, de construire en fait quelque chose de plus grand l'un avec l'autre. Donc pour moi, ce gateway de cette passerelle, et je remercie aussi justement Jutta et aussi Pepe de nous avoir conviés ici, et de vouloir en tant que continent européen ne pas donner des leçons aux uns et aux autres, ne pas de fixer des standards qui sont obligatoires pour tout le monde, mais donner des chemins, donner des échanges, vouloir construire quelque chose ensemble. Et permettez-moi de revenir sur les priorités qui ont été présentées aussi dans ce film. When we speak about internet, for example, today, we still see that, and our colleague, the president from the Comoros, said that more than half of his country, for example, or some African countries, they have no internet connections today. When we see that nowadays internet is not only surfing, but it's studying, learning, it's e-health, it's doing financial transactions, it's everything today through the net. And we saw it with the COVID pandemic, how important the internet was. And if still half of a country is not able to be part of the technological progress of a country, you will have a gap in his own country. When we speak about health, and there is a good example even in the European Union, I'm so proud about the decision we took during COVID to be able to buy together the vaccines and to distribute them together about the vaccines. You know, I'm coming from a small country where we have to admit it's a wealthy country. I would have been able to buy vaccines for my country like that. And the fact that we were able to buy them together and that someone from Sofia, from Luxembourg, from Dublin, or from Athens had the same day the opportunity to get the first vaccines was what I mean also solidarity and being stronger together than just thinking individually. Some during the COVID period thought also that walls would be the solution to stop a virus. I hope that we learned from the errors and the first temptations of some of us to block, to stop all the collaborations with the neighbor. When we speak about environment, it's a common priority that we have. And I'm a bit scared when I listen to some of the colleagues who think, yes, but for economic reasons, we should put the environment questions back on the list of jobs to do. Would be the biggest error. I just want to remind, as a Prime Minister of Luxembourg, that I don't have to ask myself how long my country will continue to exist. I have some colleagues on small islands. They don't know how long their country will continue to exist. And we should realize how it's not a climate problem, it's a climate catastrophe that we have for the moment, and we have to continue to work on that. So I won't be too long, but we just see that we are partners, and it's a win-win situation. It's not that there is just one winner. At the end of the day, through this gateway, through this initiative, there will be both side winners, and especially through education for young people. And believe me, to invest in young people, and my country is one of the very few to still have 1% of GDP in development aid. And don't do what in some countries happen, and I don't want to teach other European countries, but usually when we have budget problems, it is very popular to say, I will cut my development aid, because we have already problems at home, why should we help others? But realize that this 1% is nothing. And the problems and the way how you can help also other countries to have a better life with 1% is not a lot. And you still keep everything. So don't try to listen to populists who will try to explain you that you have to solve your own problems before helping others. We should not forget that this continent is a free continent today, because during Second World War, people came from America, from the UK, from Canada to help us. Most of them didn't know where my country was. I have a cemetery with over 4,000 young American soldiers. So solidarity doesn't mean being neighbor. Solidarity means to know that you have a chance to live in a free country, in a wealthy country, where you can have education, where you can have health care. But then in other parts of the world, it's still a shame that in 2023, and I said it already at the UNGA, freedom, health, education, being able to choose your life as a woman, what is good for you, and not that the men decide for you, depends on your place of birth. Think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. I will turn now to our next speaker. Please, a warm welcome for the Prime Minister of Portugal, António Costa.
Senhor Presidente da União Africana, chefe de Estado, colegas chefes de Governo, Excelências, os desafios globais exigem respostas globais. E só com uma forte e estreita parceria à escala global aproveitaremos bem as oportunidades que a transição digital e ecológica podem contribuir para promover o desenvolvimento sustentável, a capacitação e o comércio justo. Como Javier Bettel acaba de dizer, hoje, mais do que nunca, é necessário construir pontes. Quando alguns erguem muros, quando outros começam guerras, quando outros fazem ataques terroristas, nada como darmos as mãos, ajudar a construir a paz e o desenvolvimento. E a paz e o desenvolvimento só se constroem se a prosperidade for partilhada. Não se trata de dar, trata de fazermos em conjunto. E quero por isso saudar a Comissão Europeia, a sua Presidente Ursula von der Leyen, Pepe Borrell e a Jutta Urpilainen por nos terem mobilizado a todos, Estados-membros da União Europeia, instituições como o Banco Europeu de Investimentos, as empresas europeias, para, como Team Europe, estarmos juntos e trabalharmos em conjunto com os nossos parceiros da Ásia, os nossos parceiros da África, os nossos parceiros da América. Permitam-me que ilustre com 4 exemplos concretos aquilo que o Global Gateway significa, através de exemplos do que as empresas portuguesas estão já neste momento a fazer com parceiros africanos e da América Latina. Penso, por exemplo, nos corredores logísticos verdes e digitais que ligam o hub do Porto de Sines, em Portugal, aos portos do Atlântico Sul, em Angola, na Barra do Dande, ou no Brasil, em Pecém, para criar rotas comerciais nas áreas agroindustrial e mineral. Penso também no projeto que estamos a construir em conjunto com o México, uma nova rota marítima transatlântica que vai ligar o Porto de Sines ao Porto do Coatzacoalcos e, por esta via, ao corredor interoceânico. Um notável projeto do Presidente López Obrador que vai permitir ligar a costa atlântica do México à sua costa no Oceano Pacífico. Para além de promover a resiliência energética e industrial da Europa, estes projetos criarão riqueza e empregos nos parceiros estratégicos em África e na América Latina, garantirão a partilha de tecnologia e know-how e contribuirão para transições digitais e climáticas mais justas dos dois lados do Atlântico. Foi esta manhã assinado um importante acordo para apoiar a criação do corredor ferroviário transafricano, do Lubito, o corredor que ligará Angola, à República Democrática do Congo e à Zâmbia. Contribuirá para a diversificação económica, que é uma prioridade para os países africanos, porque estimulará a atividade económica regional, fábricas que transformem as matérias-primas para exportação, a criação de serviços de apoio e, muito importante, centros de formação e de capacitação das populações. Por fim, gostaria de dar o exemplo do trabalho que estamos a desenvolver com a Costa Rica para modernizar a sua frota de transportes públicos urbanos com autocarros elétricos. Não posso deixar de utilizar esta oportunidade para dizer que temos vontade de trabalhar em parceria com outros parceiros, também na Ásia, em outros países do continente africano, em outros países da América Latina e também em outras áreas para além das infraestruturas e do equipamento dos transportes. Falo muito em especial nas áreas da saúde e das energias renováveis, eólicas, solar e no investimento na criação dos gases renováveis como o hidrogênio verde, o metanol, a amónia verde e outros gases do futuro. Por outro lado, a nível europeu e nacional, temos de inovar no que diz respeito aos mecanismos financeiros para apoiar investimentos da Global Gateway de uma forma sustentável. Um modelo que Portugal já está a aplicar no quadro das nossas relações bilaterais com Cabo Verde é a transformação de dívida pública em investimentos climáticos. Debt for Climate Swaps. E creio que na próxima COP28 no Dubai, o Primeiro-Ministro de Cabo Verde, Ulisses Correia da Silva, terá a oportunidade de apresentar o primeiro projeto concreto financiado com esta conversão de dívida em investimento. Em conclusão, podemos trabalhar em conjunto com os nossos parceiros de África, da América e da Ásia para realizar projetos Global Gateway, verdadeiramente transformadores, que criem cadeias locais e regionais de valor acrescentado, promovendo a industrialização no local, a criação de emprego e um comércio mais forte e mais justo entre as regiões e com a Europa. Muito obrigado a todos e bom trabalho.
Thank you very much. Now, despite Brussels traffic, we have, very pleased to have joined us, made it in time. Thank you so much. Antonio Tajani, the Deputy Prime Minister and Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation.
Good morning, everybody. President of the African Union. First of all, I want to thank Ursula von der Leyen for organizing this very important event, the first forum on Global Gateway. Italy is a strong supporter of this initiative because it's an important, it's a crucial instrument for having a stronger Europe protagonist at global level. It's important for us, this meeting, because from the 1st of January, Italy will chair the G7. We want to cooperate for achieving good results with this EU Global Gateway. I think it's important to work for having stronger cooperation and for achieving good results. Of course, we need to work for more investments, quality infrastructure and connectivities. At the same time, we are pushing hard for autonomy, strategic autonomy of the European Union, and we want to reinforce the capacity of reaction of the European Union, but also of the partners of the European Union in defense of our security, because we are living a very difficult season altogether. Allow me now to talk in my mother tongue. Io credo che sia opportuna l'azione di sensibilizzazione svolta dal Forum presso le istituzioni finanziarie e gli operatori economici, alcuni dei quali sono membri del Business Advisory Group, e apprezziamo molto che alcune grandi aziende italiane ne facciano parte. Il ruolo del settore privato è fondamentale per il successo del Global Gateway, certamente in termini di risorse aggiuntive, ma anche in quanto le imprese sono veri e propri attori di sviluppo globale e anche sono fondamentali nei paesi in cui investono, innanzitutto per creare nuovi posti di lavoro. Penso anche al ruolo che possono svolgere le banche per favorire gli investimenti necessari. Ritengo per esempio strategico il ruolo dell'Africa, continente con il quale l'Italia vuole dialogare e collaborare con un nuovo approccio fondato sul stabilimento di partenariati paritari e reciprocamente vantaggiosi. Da Presidente del Parlamento europeo, da Vicepresidente della Commissione europea, ho sempre insistito perché ci fosse un piano Marshall europeo. Ora stiamo realizzando in Italia un vero piano che vogliamo scrivere insieme ai paesi africani, che chiameremo piano Mattei, perché tutti gli accordi che andremo a realizzare possono essere win-win. Grazie alla loro naturale vocazione all'innovazione e alla capacità di fare rete, le nostre aziende possono dare anche in Africa un contributo essenziale per rispondere alle sfide della doppia transizione energetica e digitale, per esempio con l'avvio di joint ventures con soggetti privati locali e con l'impiego di manodopera locale, perché non può esserci joint ventures senza dare una prospettiva di lavoro ai cittadini dei luoghi dove si realizzano. E credo anche che insieme si possa governare la sfida dell'intelligenza artificiale, italiani e africani, europei ed africani. In questo spirito, come Ministro degli Esteri della Repubblica Italiana, ho lanciato una strategia della diplomazia della crescita che rende le imprese un soggetto fondamentale nei rapporti con i nostri partner. Penso alle tante aziende italiane che hanno partecipato alla conferenza sulla ricostruzione dell'Ucraina e al ruolo che hanno avuto nelle tante missioni nei Balcani e da ultimo in Egitto e Tunisia. E siamo pronti a contribuire alla riflessione anche a livello regionale su come mettere ulteriormente a frutto le competenze del settore privato. Ma è altresì cruciale offrire ai nostri operatori economici e a quelli dei nostri partners un ambiente favorevole alla cooperazione ed al commercio. Occorre garantire piena coerenza tra le politiche interne e la nostra strategia di proiezione esterna, affinché le due si rafforzino a vicenda, aumentando la nostra attrattività e competitività globale. Dobbiamo evitare che politiche adottate a livello interno pregiudichino la strategia europea per la connettività. Penso ad esempio che sia necessaria una riflessione sull'estensione del sistema europeo di scambio di quote di emissione a un settore strategico come i trasporti marittimi. In queste 2 giornate sono emersi molti spunti di lavoro. Noi diamo grande rilievo ai temi della transizione energetica, delle infrastrutture per i corridoi di trasporto e per le tecnologie digitali, oltre che per le materie prime critiche. L'Europa è un continente industriale. L'Italia è la seconda manifattura del continente europeo. Abbiamo bisogno di materie prime, l'Africa è ricca di materie prime, insieme credo che possiamo avere strategie vincenti con la trasformazione delle materie prime in territorio africano, con lavoratori africani, in modo che l'Africa, che è un continente che apparentemente è povero ma in realtà è ricco di risorse, possa utilizzare al meglio con benefici per entrambi delle risorse in materie prime che ha. Ecco, quindi noi promuoveremo investimenti anche nel campo della sanità e nel comparto farmaceutico, ad esempio sul fronte dei vaccini, a tutela della salute pubblica dei nostri cittadini, ma anche dei cittadini del continente africano. Fondamentali saranno in ogni caso, e concludo, gli investimenti in formazione e ricerca e in generale sul capitale umano. Vere e proprie infrastrutture immateriali che ci aiuteranno a promuovere l'innovazione, la competitività e la crescita sostenibile dei nostri partner e nostra. Grazie per l'attenzione e buon lavoro a tutti.
Thank you once again. And we come to our last, but by no means least, speaker, our own Prime Minister of Belgium, Alexander De Croo.
Good afternoon, everyone, and of course, extremely happy to welcome you here in Brussels. Many good reasons to come to Brussels, and the Global Gateway, obviously, is one of them. We are in testing times, and our populations are being tested, and their fear on their well-being. They have fear on their security. Moments like this could be moments where we turn our back to the rest of the world. And we should not. We should do the opposite. And especially we as Europeans. There is no one who is more open to the world than the European Union. We are the #1 trading partner with the rest of the world. We are the #1 investor in development cooperation. We are the #1 investor in the fight against climate change, and we are the #1 diplomatic power in the world. There's only one domain in which we are not #1, is in military investments, and we are increasing significantly our military investments. And let me be very clear. We will not turn our back to the rest of the world, quite the opposite. And yes, it demands an effort to explain that to our respective populations, that remaining open to the world at a moment like this is the right thing to do. And the Global Gateway, for me, really is the signal that makes it very clear. To me, this Global Gateway is a showing of trust and of perseverance in the partnerships that we have in the rest of the world. And that is because we know that the big endeavors that we have in front of us, being it the fight against climate change, the fight against irregular migration, the fight against terrorism, there is no country in the world that can tackle it on its own. We've never done it on our own in the past, and the endeavors that we have in front of us are bigger than ever, and we will need to work together to tackle them. And when Ursula von der Leyen, as President of the European Commission, announced the European Commission as a geopolitical commission, that was groundbreaking. And if we look now 4 years later down the road, we see that modernization of our international partnerships really is on track. So much has happened over the past 4 years. And the European Union used to be known as the one that was investing more in the softer topics. We invest a lot in education. And we know why it is so crucial to invest in education, especially in secondary education, because it's secondary education that really makes a difference in the development potential of our societies. And we've always been the one that invests a lot in healthcare. Je suis extrêmement content d'avoir ici le président Macky Sall du Sénégal ici. C'est un pays avec lequel nous investissons énormément. Par exemple, la production de vaccins en site, et on le fait ensemble avec l'OMS. Extrêmement content d'avoir Tedros ici aussi. But we will go much broader. Not only on the soft topics, but also on the harder topics. That means investing in transport infrastructure and transport corridors. And extremely happy on the Belgian side to give a few examples on what we do on hydrogen, for example, with our Namibian friends, on renewable energy with our Egyptian friends. I mean, there's so many examples that we as Belgians can give, but any 27 of the European countries can give examples of the direction in which we are going, and also on raw materials. And I think Mr. Tajani made the point extremely clear. Why is it so important? It's because the endeavors I talked to you about, we will be able to tackle them faster and tackle them better. And we will do it faster and better if we work together. Together as 27, but especially together with the partners which are here present. If we want to phase out fossil fuel, we will be able to do it so much faster if we work together with everyone here at this event. If we want to combine climate, industry, and development, we will be able to do it so much better if we do it together. And if we want to develop a vibrant private sector, if we want to develop a vibrant civil society, we will be able to do it better and faster if we do it together. So this Global Gateway, it will be at the core of the Belgian presidency, which will start next year, of the rotating Belgian presidency of the European Union. It will be the end of the legislature, so it will be a special one. But Global Gateway definitely will be at the core of what we do. So again, happy to have all of you here in Brussels. I hope you look forward to great discussions, and obviously I hope you will also enjoy the nightlife in Brussels, which is also second to none. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I see that many of you have been enjoying the speeches, and it is a cause for celebration that so many have come together here today and yesterday to have these fruitful discussions. But there is still work to do, and so with a view to looking to the future, I'll invite back onto the stage for closing remarks the High Representative Borrell.
Thank you, honorable guests. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for your interventions. It's a great honor for me to close this forum with a few observations, and I promise to be brief, because a lot has already been said. Can we conclude that we are on the right path? That we are doing what has to be done? Yes. Can we conclude that we have to do it faster and better? Yes. But faster and better, sometimes they don't go hand in hand. Maybe you can go faster, but not doing better. And this happens. Quickly doesn't mean always good. So we have to go faster, but keeping in mind that quality matters. Because infrastructures are there to stay, to last centuries. And they cannot be finished overnight, letting behind us a waste of money. So yes, we have to do more. We have to take care of the environment. And we have to take care of the different socio-economic levels of the people around the world. If we see someone that has never had access to internet, never, he doesn't know what is a web page, and he has never seen an electric bubble, and you told him you have to be green and digital, he will look at us saying, what do you mean by that? Green and digital? He will not understand us, because he has never seen an electric bubble and he has never seen a screen to go through the gateways of the world. We have to understand that many people around the world still are not in our level of development. So we have to talk with them according with what they can understand. Because their existential problems, many times, they are not measured on years, they are measured on days. Because their survival is measured on days, not on years. And we have to keep that in mind if we want to be understood. We have done a lot. I'm not going to the figures. President von der Leyen said that we have already committed 66 billion euros, 66. It's quite a lot. Half of them will be funded by grant funding from the European Union, but committed is still not done. It is the will, the commitment, and then the implementation. So there is a lot of work to be done in order to build this passerelle. How do you say in Spanish, global gateway? I'm asking that because I'm Spanish, and because Spanish is the second most spoken tongue in the world after Chinese. Good to remember. And it's not easy to translate global gateway to Spanish. Global is clear, but gateway? Let's go to French first. And the Prime Minister of Luxembourg told us gateway means passerelle, a way of linking, a way of going, overcoming obstacles, linking people about the borders, about the mountains, the rivers, the seas that separates them. And the most important obstacles to link people are not the mountains, are not the rivers, are not the seas, are the borders. Now, the borders are artificial creations of humankind. The borders are the scars that the history has left on the skin of the earth. Yes, they are the scars of the history. And our global gateway has to go over the borders, most of the time artificial limits among human people, in order to make them be part of a whole common project. We have to build roads, but the most important thing that we have to build is a political environment that ensures a shared prosperity. This is our greatest challenge. And for that we need us Europeans to work more coordinated among us. Team Europe. It's not only the European Union institutions, the European Union member states. Our offer sometimes comes too divided in small pieces. We have to go together to offer not 20 aspirins, but a whole hospital. And this means working together among us much better and quicker. And with respect to the rest of the world, we need to work on the G7, on the G20, and on the United Nations. We need the United Nations, and at this crucial moment, I want to send a message of support to the United Nations and its Secretary General. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much, and thank you indeed to those who've joined online. It's 2023, so of course there's a hashtag, and we do want you to get involved. Please do use the hashtags Global Gateway and hashtag Team Europe to share the discussions further beyond this room, further beyond Brussels, and spread it around the world. I would also like to make a short security announcement for everyone in the interest of allowing everyone to leave safely and smoothly. If you could all please remain in your seats until we have left our head of state's exit so that they can get out quickly, and then we can all move outside to lunch. So stay in your seats for now and let our heads of state leave, please.